Here's my next clock I'm going to work on, this black slate clock. Got it from the Goodwill site. Goodwill of the Southern Piedmont. This is the pictures they had. The basic clock, the back of the clock with a little tag of when it was serviced at the bottom, some tape on the side, you'll notice. Masking tape hanging down there. There's the movement, an open escapement. Face is a little bit worn, but it's not bad. Back, there's the movement itself. Can't really tell. Looks like there's a little circle right there stamped. Pinned movement. I did a bunch of research. This plate design and that little stamp was real consistent with Jappy Frizz, so I thought, well, let me bid on this clock. So I threw a bid in there. No one had bid on it. There were 2 days left on the auction, and nobody had bid on this clock. So I'm like, well, why? It's $9.99. Like, I'll bid on it. And so I threw in my $9.99 bid. And then I went to the shipping, and I'm like, let me just see how much it'll be to ship to my house. And it was $150. And I went, ooh, crap, I hope somebody else bids on this clock. And then I looked, and it was about 80 miles from my house at the Goodwill. So I thought, well, okay, maybe it's a good thing. Well, I'm supposed to have this clock because nobody wants to pay that kind of shipping. That's why nobody's bid on it, and I don't have to get it shipped. I could drive and pick it up. So that's what I did today. Well, my husband, he drove. We both went and got this clock. And here it was with the tape. It made a little bit of noise when I went. They brought it out. If you ever shopped at, I know I'm talking an awful lot. If you've ever shopped at Walmart, done online, and then you pull up and they put everything in the trunk, that was kind of how the Goodwill was when you go to pick it up. They had designated parking. I called the phone number. I said, hey, I'm here. I had set up an appointment time and everything. They bring a little wagon out. Here's my clock sitting in the wagon. He doesn't even attempt to, like, pick it up and put it in the car or do anything, even though I got the trunk open. And so I picked it up. It's like really, really heavy. I'm going to weigh it here in a minute. I think it's way more than 28 pounds. I would bet it's like 50 pounds, 40 pounds at least. But anyway, I heard something kind of rattle when I was going to lay it down in the back of the trunk, and I heard something rattle, so I undid the tape on the back just to get in the door to see what it was, hoping that the pendulum was down in there, because you saw the pictures. There was no picture of a pendulum or anything. And the pendulum was sitting down in there. And so while I was kind of leaning it up, trying to get it out, the whole movement fell out. Here's the little pieces that hold these arms. So there's nothing holding this movement at all, except the masking tape, because the little arms, the little feet broke off of. They're still here on the little screws on the back door. So that makes it easy to get the movement out, at least, right? I don't have to worry about that. And this is not attached in any way, and I don't know how it becomes attached. I don't see a hinge or anything. Got some fabric on there over that, whatever it is, metal. And I guess it comes apart somehow. Yeah, that looks like where my hinge used to be right there. Looks like the pin is still in it. I don't know where it used to go. So anyway, we'll have to discover that. I've got the hinge, and I've got a hole right there with the pin sticking out the bottom. So whatever the rest of that hinge used to go to, we will find out. But that was one thing. So then the whole, like I said, the whole movement fell out. So let's just take the tape off, and we'll just get right to the movement. Before I got it, I was looking online to try to identify. I have never had a French clock, so I was trying to identify things like, how could you tell the age, when were the black slate clocks made, any information about Jappy Frizz and Company. The slate's in really good shape. That's a good part. The movement is all pretty good. Even the suspension spring is still in there and intact. Alright, so like overall it looks good. So this is what we got to check right here. And look, there's a number on there, 2585. And I looked on the pendulum and it says 2585. So how about that? It even matches the pendulum, which Jeffrey Frere did. They matched, like they put matching numbers on all their stuff. But we're going to get the magnifier and look at that little circle right there. Let me weigh this big bad boy. This is all the tape that was on it. Gong's in there. No key that I could hear rattling around. Nothing on here that I could find. Wooden bottom. Couple feet. Couple something else on the other end besides feet. These look like the original. These look like some paper with a small little something stuck on there because the piece came out. Kind of looks like concrete. There's something that used to be right here. A paper or something. I don't know. I don't know anything about these. Don't see anything on here. But I will check closer as I work on this thing. There's 2 layers. Alright, let me get the scale. See what it is. So I'm trying to determine the age of this clock. So I looked online, and these little round symbols can tell you a lot. The serial number doesn't tell you much. And this, let me zoom in. This 4 and this 8 is the pendulum length. 4 Pouce, P-O-U-C-E, 8 Ligne, L-I-G-N-E. So in French, 4 and 8/12 inches long. Which basically in English is 4 3/4 inches. And that's about what this is to the center there. But this tells me this is the right pendulum because that stamp number right there matching the back right here. Other things to look for to date it. Okay, so this type of suspension, the silk suspensions were used till about 1850. The spring they started using about after 1850, and then this little extra shoulder is an 1865 edition that makes it click when you are adjusting your when you're getting in beat. It makes it make a little click sound. And so obviously it's after 1865 based on that little shoulder piece being on there. And then if you look at the pendulums, these kind of pendulums appeared about 1870. And then this little stamp on here it is not Jeffrey Frere's, it is Samuel Marti. I don't know if you can see it, but it says S. Marti et C in the center, and then around the outside it says Medal de Bronze. So if you go to the websites that discuss Samuel Marti, he got the bronze medal in 1860. He got a silver medal in 1889. So this has to be between 1860 and 1889, and with the pendulum, it's after 1870. So roughly 1870 to 1889 is my guess on the age of this movement. I did play with this a little bit. It's very tight. You can't open it. I guess that's how these got broken off. Someone trying to pry it open. Maybe they were prying on this instead of this and broke those off, but this does open. It just doesn't open very easily. So my hinge is good. Everything is good. I'm just going to have to weld these two little pieces back onto these arms, and then my clock will stay, the movement will stay inside the clock. So I played with this a little bit. The open escapement does want to go when I put the pendulum on it. And I think this is backwards, because to see it, the R and the A and the name and everything and the screw to tighten it when you finally find the right spot, it makes me hook it from the back instead of the front, which would be hard to do in a case. But anyway, if I hold it right, it does want to tick, so that's good. Wobbles a bit, so I don't know if my suspension spring's broken or it's just because it's in my hand. Let's see what it does from here. And then I turn to the hands. And it is wanting to gong. So overall, I would say pretty good shape to just solder two parts on there, and just to get a key, I'll have everything I need. There's it going into warning. There's the strike. It's 5 o'clock. Now it's 6 o'clock. Shuts off good. I'm seeing a little bit of solder right here. Someone has pried on that, and that's had to have a little silver solder to it, but it's good and firm. So I think I am ready to take this face off, and I'm not really sure how. I see pins, but then I see these little screws and I guess maybe they hold this plate on. I'm going to start with the hands, of course, and then I'll take these pins off, and let's see what comes off. And what's holding my hands, which is interesting, is I'm pretty sure it's like a dressmaker's pin. There's a little head on the end of it. You know, like a little pin you get when you buy a new shirt and they want the folds to stay nice. Definitely not the usual type pin. But people do what they gotta do, right? And the little extra part on the head just came off with me grabbing it with pliers, but that's okay because we're not going to reuse it anyway. Alright, I got a big domed washer. That is gunky and does not want to let go. I think someone's home. Wow, I can't even get the little domed washer off. This is just too much, right? I'm tired and I'm just not in the mood right now. So I'm going to turn this off and do it later. So it's all back apart. Note to self, always double check everything before you're putting your top plate on. My 2 springs, I tested this one after I had it in the barrel and made sure that the key would wind. I mean, you can't do much holding it in your hand, but you can make sure that the center arbor with the little spur on it that holds the spring is catching. And I didn't test the other one apparently, because once I had this on and the little things on the back and was ready to put the stuff on the outside, I was just checking it with the key to make sure everything would spin like it was supposed to, and this one wouldn't catch at all. And so I thought, okay, I've got to take it all back apart. The center loop is not catching on the little spur on the arbor, and that wasn't it. Once it was in this barrel and the center arbor pushed that far down, the little spur wasn't in the right spot to get on the hole in the spring. I had to take the center curl of the spring and actually pull it forward some so that it could catch. It was seated too deep. But anyway, now the spring is holding, and so now I get to put it all back together. So I took those 2 little plates off the back because without those on, you just have these, and this one to get in the pivot holes, and it's easier to put those on the outside after it's done. So actually that one is not the one, it's that one and this one, and these 2 guys, and these 2 guys, and these of course. So let me get the plate back on there again. So it's been a few days and this clock is still sitting here in the same shape. I'm not still in the same shape. We've been rebuilding our back porch. So the serial number is on these pieces, but the E and the C has been added by the clock case maker. The only thing I can find is it might be Eureka Company that was in business in Boston, Connecticut around 1860, but there's not much information available about who made it. But anyway, the Samuel Marti made movements and sold them, and then people would put them in whatever kind of case they wanted, and so the EC would be whoever made that case and put the movement in it to sell. I did have this before I took it apart overnight. It was taped back into the case so I could see how it worked, and it would strike at about 5 minutes till the hour and the half hour, and then most of the time it would only do one time, whether it was the hour or the half hour. Sometimes not at all. But mostly just one time. So I've been studying these levers down in here. On the back side of the minute arbor is 2 pins across from each other that you would expect to make it work on the hour and the half hour. It lifts this inside arm, that inside arm, which is supposed to lift this arm, to let the rack fall down the right number of times, but it's not lifting the rack high enough for some reason, so that's what I got to look for when I get it apart. And it may just be that it's dirty and the rack's not falling like it's supposed to, but we'll see. That's kind of why I was slowly taking the front off so I could kind of investigate a little bit better, but you really still can't, with these French clocks, you can't see much of what's going on. The German clocks, all that stuff was right here on the front plate. There weren't 3 plates, boop, boop, boop. So if I take this plate off, I may or may not be able to see what's going on. Let me try that. This plate has some pins holding it on, so maybe I can remove this one and see a little better what's going on. So let me take those 3 pins out. My first French clock. I'm trying to learn as I go along. So I got those pins out. It wasn't very easy, especially the one under the barrel. They'd cut it off really short, even with the plate, and you couldn't get under it to push from the other side. I had to get my pivot locator in there because it's flat on the end and push it from the inside, and then it went flying, but I found it. Did I miss a pin? No, it's just got to fit out of that hole, that's all. Okay, so there's that plate, and it just has the last 2 of the serial number, no other marks on there. I think it's interesting that each piece was labeled, like, would they mix them up somehow? You know, they boxed a bunch of these together and you just looked for the matching number to put on the plates. I don't know. Okay, so finally I can see what's going on with this movement. There's a little V stamped right there, or an arrow or something, I don't know. Alright, where's my minute hand? Let's try this and see what this is doing. So what I'm seeing is this little one here is supposed to raise this and let it fall so that it can count off the number that it's supposed to count off. And the only thing lifting it is this little bent piece of metal right there. I saw that on a grandfather clock recently. Of course, it was a lot bigger and heavier, but it's just a little piece, flat piece of metal that they bent around this little skinny thing, and this is responsible for all of your lifting mechanism. It's a very thin, fine piece right there, little edge. Alright, so let's see what this does. If it's sitting up, and we turn the hands. Doesn't lift much, does it? So that should be the half hour, and this should be the hour, and it should go several times. So let's see what it does. It just doesn't fall out of the way to let it strike. It doesn't lift it over there. So I don't know why it's not, but maybe the little pins on the back are a little bit worn. We'll have to just check it out. So there are 2 separate pins for the warning and the lock system. So this wheel has the warning pin on it. No, that's the wrong one. That's the gong lever one. This wheel up here has the warning pin right here. This arm has a tab that goes through, and that's what's going to hit your warning pin when it goes into warning. This is the locking pin right here on the next wheel up. So there's a little pin right there, and it locks on this arm. There's 2 springs, one on this arm holding it down and up, one on your gong down here, and when it turns, there it goes into warning, drops out a warning, comes around and catches right there. So that's what I've been doing, is kind of watching how this works. If you watch behind here, you can see the little 2 tabs that are on the back of the hour pipe going around. Starting to lift, warning. And then lifting higher, but still not high enough for the rack to pass this little arm right there. It just doesn't lift it high enough. Neither that tab almost lifts it high enough, but it still falls back. So it's only striking 1 time on each hour, instead of, it needs to go a hair higher. So we got to figure out how to make this go a hair higher. That'll be the job of this cleaning and repair. So you saw when I took the front parts off, when I took the open escapement, the ruby pallets off of the escape wheel, how it started spinning. I could easily stop it by putting my finger on it. I had not let down. I didn't want to let down. I wanted to check the strike, so I didn't let down either side. So that was my mistake. I should have at least let the time side down. So that's what I did. I had to look between the plates, find this little arm, and push it up and let it unwind. And so now I'm going to do that with the other side and let the power down on the strike side now that I'm done investigating what I wanted to see. Wind it up a little and let her down. And there's a little S over here on this click. The pendulum was interesting. It had a cleaning date etched on it. And I have a feeling they put that little S too. So we'll see what else we find as we get into this case. Let me take some pictures. I went ahead and took my gong off now that I'm done investigating the strike. I'm going to take this intermediate wheel little holder off. I don't know why it looks like there's 3 little holes right there, and that's the actual hole. They don't go all the way through though. That's really strange. Okay. And then loosen this. Take my snail off. I may not have to. I may just be able to lift it. So that screw just holds the snail to this wheel. And then there's the little intermediate wheel. All of it looks to be in good shape. Alright, the one I wanted to investigate is not going to come off. So, this is interesting because this has the little shaved down center arbor, like I found in another clock or two that I was curious about why they did that. And it could just be round and it wouldn't interfere with any function at all, but for some reason they take all this middle and shave it down where you can see the post right there in the middle. I think I probably will have to, no, that's just going to have to come off from the inside. I have a feeling. I just wanted to like eyeball it, like take this off and look at the two pieces on the back to see if I could see why it's not lifting this very far. There, it lifted it far enough. Maybe because I had my finger on it. Let's try it again. All the way down. One time. All the way down. Alright, so maybe when it's clean it will do what it's supposed to do, because it does actually move it. It's the distance it's supposed to, now that I've got some things off of it. Okay. Alright, so let's take off the rest of this. Bunch of oil up underneath that thing. Even under the click spring. Put one line, scratched one line on the back of that one, and two lines on the back of that one. Alright, these three levers have pins. A little washer I missed. Really clean on the inside and on the outside too. Lots of little domed washers. Well, that's not going anywhere. It should come off of there. There we go. 3 little dots on a lot of stuff, so I guess that's how they matched their parts up. That's not going to come out of there with that in the way. So I guess we are ready to flip it over and take the plate off. One, two, three, four. 2 posts close together, 2 further apart. Looks like just the fan fell out, so not bad. I can get a picture. It's interesting that most of the pivots are on little pieces like this, so you can take them off and rebush them. Somebody had pinged that one and then maybe rebushed it, or maybe their bushing was too small and then they pinged it on the back. It looks like a bushing has been put in from this side, but it does not look like a bushing was put in from that side, so that's interesting. Maybe it's not a long enough bushing. It only goes part way through, which I guess is all it needs to do, because half of that is an oil sink, right? Alright, let me get a picture here. And we'll get this parts cleaned. I cleaned up the face and I wasn't real happy with how it came out. If you look at these numbers straight on, they look gold with black letters, but if you look at them at an oblique light at all, they've got like this orange stuff that's half there and half gone. So I have redone some. This is the 2 stages of it. I got a little gold paint. take a little paintbrush, put a very thin layer of gold on these 3 right here. 1, 2, 3, these 4. And then I'm going over the numbers again with the black Sharpie, and also the details to make them pop back out. So far it's coming out pretty good. There's the first 3. There's just the gold paint. There's just the original still on there. And I think it's going to come out pretty good. The case, on the other hand, I've cleaned it, and it's got a white haze all over it from old wax, so I got to scrub on it some. If you want to see what I'm going to do to the case, then check out my adamantine, Seth Thomas adamantine cleaning video, because that's what I'm going to do to it. Some steel wool and some ammonia solution to break up all the old wax so that the slate marble can be shiny. I didn't mention how I was putting the details back on. I found household things that worked. Can't pick it up. A penny was about the right size to make my circles around the numbers. A nickel let me do the detail, little arrow shaped pieces. Just moved my nickel around to trace around with my Sharpie. And then I have this little thing, and if I need a little straight edge, like from the 3 down there, I can use that and put a little straight line on there so that it looks real crisp. And then there's little holes I can use to put the dots back on the designs. So anyway, just happen to have stuff I could use to put the design back on with. So I cleaned the parts this morning. I oiled the springs and got them back in the barrels. And then I spent about an hour getting the parts in there. It's not very easy on a pinned movement. And there's parts you have to put on before you put it together. These little things that are going to hold stuff out here. You can't forget those or you'll be taking it back apart. But you don't need to put these 2 on because you can put them on after, and it makes it easier to get your plates together. The biggest issue I had when I got everything all lined up trying to get it together was this wouldn't fit in this hole anymore. Where I had tapped on this to pop the cap off, it put enough of a lip that it wouldn't fit in the hole anymore, and I had to broach the hole bigger. It would easily fit in that one, but it wouldn't fit in this one. I don't know why. But anyway, someone had rebushed these, and apparently they weren't the same size. This one was a hair tight, and all it took was a little bit of a lip, which I filed the lip off, but it still wouldn't fit in there, and I had to broach the hole bigger. So this is finally back together. The strike side, 1 wheel for the time, and the second wheel for the time is all that goes in between there. What I would suggest is, because I took everything all apart and I took all the screws off of the plates, all these little pieces that are screwed on, I would suggest you figure out which screws go where or find some way to keep them separate in your mind. The biggest one that's most important is this one. That's a Philister screw that's got a shoulder that doesn't have any threads on it, because it has to go in your click for your click to be able to move freely. That's what that one is for. The rest of them have threads the entire length, but if you have one that has a shoulder with no threads underneath the head, that's the one that goes on the click so that it can swing freely. Then there's a smaller Philister one that goes on your click spring. And then the others are pretty much all the same. Pretty big Philister head. Some are bigger than others. Obviously, they go in different places, so I'm going to guess the biggest one goes in this great big bracket up top, and the smaller ones in these, and these are for the back. So anyway, that's what I've done, is I've gone through and I'm like, well, where does this screw go? Well, where does that screw go? What makes sense, you know? Because I took this all apart and cleaned it. And some people will be like, oh, the patina. Okay, patina is dirty brass. Okay, so my brass is now clean. You can see the numbers easily, the retard advanced, the Thiel name on it. And someone put, let's see, Bartleman, Bartleman. And then P/O or PIO, and then the date of 11/12/92. He felt the need to write on my pendulum right here. But anyway, my pendulum is clean. I took this whole assembly out, unscrewed here, threaded this off, cleaned it all so that it moves really nicely now. But this is a special screw. None of these other little tiny screws will fit in it. It's got a little bit different thread. So that's what started me on my screw hunt, trying to figure out what went where. This part is pretty much like any other clock. Put all your pieces in, move them up and down, make sure you got in shake. And then we're on to putting all the other outside pieces in. So I'll do that with y'all, but you guys can figure this part out for an hour on your own, because if it's your first one, it's a pain in the butt. So the roofers came out a few weeks ago to put a new roof on the kitchen and the back porch. Wanted to match the rest of the house. We put that one on like 15, 20 years ago, but never did this because the plan was to tear off. This is the kitchen, and the washer, dryer, and chest freezer and everything are in there, and it's very tight. Like, tear it off, make the kitchen bigger, redo this porch. Never have. So after 20 years of living here, we're like, we're not going to. Let's get the roof done. So they came out to do the roof, and where it had been leaking for 20 years, of course, it was rotten. And so the beam had to have some work, and all the tie-ins. And the estimates were through the roof, like 30 grand to tear the roof off and put a new one on. So we spent $300 at Lowe's and got lumber and this nice porch jack right here. And we've been working on this freaking porch for 3 weeks. But it is almost done. And it's looking good. And everywhere that we replaced wood had been replaced before. So it had leaked for 20 years before that. It had been leaking ever since this kitchen was added, because they just stuck it to the side of the house and the flashing was not under the siding. So now the flashing is under the siding. It should not leak anymore. And when we get one more board on right over there, they can come and put the new roof on. Yay! This is all my husband right there. He loves to reinforce things. He took engineering in college. I took nursing, but I am a builder. I built that garage. I designed it, built it. Had to have help, of course. I'm small, I'm weak. But anyway, did that one, did the front porch. I like to build. I've done a lot of drywall finishing, like construction stuff. I just enjoy doing that stuff with my hands, and that's probably why I like working with clocks. But so yeah, all this reinforcing stuff is him, and all of this 45-degree angled in beams with a 5-degree cut off the front side to make them fit right, because it's old construction, is all me. That's why they want so much money. Any kind of old construction, reconstruction stuff is very expensive, because nothing fits right. But yeah, I'm happy to get this sucker done, but I can hardly move. And this was a compound miter saw injury. I almost cut the whole end off. I stuck my thumb into the blade before it was done turning and chewed it up a little bit, but got lucky that I didn't cut the end of my finger off. I'm just slowly adding parts back on. I'm looking at my pictures, making sure I get things right. There's 2 little springs that you can put on before or after. I put one on before and I put one on after I had the back plate on. But they seem to be different sizes, and I looked at my pictures, and the heavier one was on the this little lift arm, and the lighter one was on the gong, and I don't think that was correct, because you want the gong to be gonging nice and hard on your thing. So anyway, I put the 2 springs in, and I was going to put the strike side stuff on so I could test it and make sure I had my everything indexed right, that my warning pin and stop pins were in the right place and everything, but you can't with this clock. You have to get this stuff on before the levers because it's up under it. So I've put this little guy on and oiled it. I'm trying to oil them as I go so that I don't end up missing parts. And then this is the next little guy, and I was trying to figure out which way it went. Did the little leaf pinion go up or down? I found one little picture that I think showed it going up, so there's a tiny hole there. It goes there, interlocks with that, and then this, when the snail goes on, that goes on there. And so it locks on with this. And let me get a screw in there and oil that one. And then I'm going to put some levers in the snail back on. Well, that's what I tried to do, but, you know, I forgot. Like, that has to go under. That's the wheel that keeps this from coming off, so let me take it back off. Still having to take stuff back off to put parts on. I should watch my own video at how I took it apart, but I didn't. Like, I haven't watched it, so I'm just trying to figure it out as I go along. So, these 2 levers wouldn't go on. It's got to go under that, so I had to take this back off to get that lever on. And to get this lever on, this one goes over it with a little wire pin, lift pin in the center of that V-shaped one. And that's what holds this up far enough. So to put that on, you have to kind of pull the wheel back with the pin on, the stop pin on it, to lift this up. And then put that on there, and then it won't let it drop too far. Before you have this on there, this arm will drop too far down and your pin will actually be on top of your arm, blocking everything. So once that arm is on there, those 2 lift levers are on there, it lets that be in the right spot. Just to be hitting at the face of that little arm to be a stop pin. It's turning very easily, as you can tell. A little pressure on this right here, and it's turning nicely. All right, so then I had to put this back on. That's got my 2 pins on the back that lift this whole mechanism. And it's going around one time and stopping, which looks like it's working like it's supposed to. Goes into warning. Runs one time around when it comes out of warning, so I think that's good. So I'm ready to put this back on, and I had it on and it wasn't doing anything, like it wasn't contacting anything. You got to make sure this is far enough down, all the way seated down, so that the little short pins on the back will lift that little V-shaped piece. So I've got it there. And that looks like the hour, it's lifting a lot higher. So it looks like it's lifting on both. So maybe the whole problem with the clock, why it wouldn't strike on the half hour sometime, this shaft may have been forward a little bit. So it's down all the way and it seems to be lifting fine. So I think I'm ready to put my rack, my snail, and this little guy first, because he's got to lock on to that, and then these teeth lock onto that. It's interesting because this is a leaf pinion, but it looks like a lantern pinion. When you look at it from the top, it looks like a lantern pinion with no top on it. Alright, so that's on there. This is on there. I have no idea where it needs to be. And Then there is one more piece to go on this. And this is what's going to fall. Maybe. Yeah. Fall on my different positions. So it's just going to run forever now because I don't have the little arm on there to make it shut off. This sticking through here has this tiny little piece on it that I told you about. It did slip off fairly easily. See, it's just a little tiny round piece of flat metal that they've wound around and left a tab on. And that little tab is what counts off your strikes. So let me get that back on there. I'm just going to slip this back on this thing and look at some pictures and figure out which direction it's supposed to go. I put the little flange sticking up. It kind of looked like that's how it was in my picture. So let's see what happens when we turn. It's lifting, dropping, lifting one time, shutting off. That was the half hour. Let's see what it does on the hour. Still only lifting one time. So I have not fixed the problem of it not striking the number of hours it's supposed to. Even though it's lifting higher, it's not lifting high enough to let the thing fall all the way past. That time it fell down too. I'm trying to hold it straight up and down, like it will be in the clock. Half hour. And then lifting higher for the hour. It should fall all the way down. That fell a little bit further. It should let it fall all the way down, but it's touching it. Why is it not falling down? Oh, that's where I am. That's why. This little arm is on the snail. That's deciding how far it's falling. So that looks good. It let it fall. And it's counting it back up. So I'll go all the way around and see where it is at the 12 o'clock position. Check all my times and before I put the last little things on to hold all. I haven't put the pins in these levers to hold them in place yet. It's an interesting design. It's not an easy design. Like what goes on that? Like why does that stick all the way right there? Oh, that's just to keep it from going back too far. Okay, still learning on this thing. So I check it every step of the way just to make sure it's still working right. And I put the little domed washers and pins on, and then the rack wasn't falling like it should. These little domed washers are different heights. When I had this one over here, it was partway covering up the hole, so by the time I put a pin in, it made it very tight and it wasn't falling freely. So I had to switch those out. So now I got to make sure everything's still working the same. There's the half hour. Let's see if it falls on the hour. Lets it go all the way. Yep. Nope, I don't really like it. I don't think it went all the way. I may have to move my snail, but anyway, you guys know how to do that stuff, move snails. But the nice thing about the French clock is there's a little screw right here. I think I can loosen that screw and put the snail wherever I want it. So there's an easy adjustment instead of having to take everything all back apart like on a cuckoo clock or other clock that's got a rack and snail. I'm struggling a little bit to get this rack to hit the snail right where I want it. It seems like parts move that I don't want to be moving when I try to adjust it a little bit. So I ended up taking this all back off, and there's two little dots. Like I noticed there was a dot on this wheel. Notice there's a little hole drilled right there. on the outside of the wheel. And then there's a little hole drilled here and a hole drilled here. So I'm lining up these two holes across from each other. And I'm going to put the snail on here where the other dot is right under the little arm that's falling right there. So it's basically pointing to that little dot, and those two dots are lined up. And I'm going to put it back together again, and for the 57th time, and see what I got. So all I did was put this back on here, put the hand on. Let's see what it does. That was a half hour, which means on the hour it is going to be too close. So I don't know what to do to set this thing up. I really don't. Because it's barely on there for the 1 o'clock. I don't know. Let's go back around to the 12. That should be 10. And it did 11 there. 11:30. So that's the 12, and look how far away from the 1 o'clock position it is. That was, it did 11, I don't know. Maybe I counted wrong. So the little dot is coming up to the arm. I like that. That's pretty good there. Alright, and then 12:30. Let's see where the little arm hits on the snail for 1 o'clock. It's better. It's still kind of halfway hanging off of it. I don't know. I think I still need to go a tooth further over, so I'm going to do that.